Welcome back to the channel, you guys. Today we're going to talk about recce or reconnaissance, specifically in urban areas. So for a lot of us, when we think about recon missions, we think about the term recce, recce rifle, all the cool stuff that we get to see on the internet. We think about wooded areas, large chest rigs, sustainment packs, large SPRs. But the reality is, for most of us, we live in a fairly urban environment, and it's not going to be very realistic. And if things were to go sideways, if things were to go south, we would be an instant target just based off of our physical appearance alone. So for that reason, we're going to talk a little bit about what it looks like in an urban setting, what it would require of you if you live in an area like this to be able to get out, gather intelligence, and help yourself be more prepared for whatever's going on. Let's dig into it. So when we talk about how to be prepared, how to gather intelligence, when we're building our area study, that's the key part of having a strong intelligence plan. So what's going on in our area of operation, what's going on in our area of interest. And while we don't have to get super in-depth on that in this video, having the right gear, being prepared, understanding your surroundings and how to blend in are going to help you a lot in being successful and avoiding confrontation. Talk to anybody who's done it. The game plan is not to get into a fight, it's to avoid a fight and get as much information as you can and get out. So we talk about a lot with EDC and the gray man theory, but dressing in neutral colors. You guys can see, obviously you're probably looking for it. Yes, there's a chest rig under the jacket, but a nondescript jacket, a hat with a local sports team on it, a flat colored shirt, basic blue jeans, nothing too much that if anybody were to walk by me in a crowd, really wouldn't give me a second glance, really wouldn't pay me any more attention than they would anybody else going up and down the street. But with a simple setup like what you guys see here, you can still be effective. You can still maintain communications. You can gather data. You can gather information. You actually have some benefits that you may not have otherwise, because we have things like cell phones. We have things like earpieces that are becoming more and more common in today's world. So things like earbuds, or even something like what you see here that runs to a radio that's concealed by my jacket. Those sorts of things are extremely available, they're extremely commonplace, and they're not going to stick out. You can carry additional sustainment with you, things like maybe in your chest kit here you have some med. Maybe you have things like a right in the rain pad that you can go ahead and you can take some notes, and people aren't going to bat a second eyelash at it because it's just a notepad. Maybe you have a pen, you're taking notes, could be for a school project, could be a grocery list. None of this is going to stick out and bring undue and unnecessary attention to you while you're out there doing things. And in the event that you needed to see further, things like that, you can carry gear like something like this Solo 8x25 from Vortex as a scope to help, observe what you're looking for, to help gather more information. Those of you guys that have served operationally understand that the intelligence package you have directly correlates to the success of your mission more often than not. And that exact same premise is true for us as prepared individuals and prepared civilians, regardless of what our mission set is. That's to bug out, to bug in and stay home and protect our families and to ride out the storm. Having the things around you that are going to make you more successful and understanding how to use them is a key component in all of this. Otherwise, you may be less successful, which could lead to some very, very poor results for you and your loved ones. So what does this look like? We're going to talk a little bit about the kit that I have, how accessible this is, how easy it is to go. I don't need a large rifle, right? Yes, a recce weapon can be something like a concealed carry Glock 19, like what I'm carrying with me right now in a sidecar holster from T-Rex Arms. Something like their Ready rig here and a very nondescript bomber jacket. All of this comes together, and I have all the same tools that I would any other time if I was out in the field with a full recce kit. Something like a flashlight that fits into your pocket, like this MCH from Cloud Defensive. If you need a knife, something like a simple folder like this Tenacious from Spyderco. All these things seemingly innocuous, people carry them every day, and in the event that you needed to escalate, you have something like this rig where you can carry a tourniquet, you can carry a rifle magazine, maybe if you have to escalate back to your vehicle and you have a carbine of some variety. If you need additional pistol ammunition, you can carry something like that with you here. And with all of this, it doesn't stick out. You can go ahead and you can actually zip up the jacket here and no one's the wiser, and you can still infiltrate the areas around you. You can gather information to be more successful. So let's jump back over to the basement, and we're going to talk about what I've been running here and what that looks like. Okay, guys. So let's talk about the gear, what we're going to use to support this overall mission set we have of gathering intelligence, building our area study, working within our area of operations and area of interest. So some of the things that we're trying to gather could be, I mean, it could really be anything. In the event that things go sideways and we need to have good information on where we live and the things around us, that could mean water treatment facilities, sewage treatment facilities, power stations and relay stations. Any of those things could really have a direct impact on our quality of life and our direct relationship to our survivability if things were to go sideways. Again, putting this in the scope of a prepared civilian. So not trying to make this too Jason Bourne here.
Christ, that's Jason Bourne.
But in instances where there's an emergency or a crisis, getting access to that information may not be very easy. So it's helpful to gather this in advance, but if you haven't and you need to gather this information, stuff like this is going to make your job a lot easier because you're going to be able to blend in. You're going to be inconspicuous and have less wandering eyes drawn to you, utilizing things like solid neutral colors here, like blues and grays, wearing something like a head covering, sunglasses, you know, local sports team, right? Obviously, being in the Detroit area, huge Tigers fan. I can tell you guys, honestly, as a huge Detroit sports fan, when people walk around town wearing other sports team logos and things like that. So, you know, if you think you're just going to grab a random, you know, sports ball team logo cap because you don't care about sports, you're actually going to make yourself more noticeable having something like a 49ers hat or Boston Bruins or something. If you are able to understand the culture of the area you're in, you're going to be in a much better place to succeed. So Detroit sports teams or whatever city you're in, and then neutral colors, things that aren't going to call out, and then have layers, right? So you can use something like this jacket, right, to cover up the chest rig that I'm wearing. And if you can't get away with a jacket, then you have even less options, but we don't have to belabor the point too much. On my person, I have comms, I have some degree of medical support, I have points of escalation for firearms. Some of the things we talk about when we think about reconnaissance and the Recce mission overall is usually, you know, large chest rigs, big SPR. In this instance, what we're talking about is not that. We're talking about a very different mission set in an urban environment where your Recce weapon may not be a 18-inch rifle with a, you know, a 3 to 15 scope on it. It could be something like a Glock 19 in a sidecar holster, something like this, right? So Glock 19, very concealable. In this case, a Holosun 509T on it, which, yes, solar power for a backup, great enclosed emitter. So in my personal opinion, that's a little bit better for you just because it's one less thing to worry about if that dot's going to get occluded from, you know, I don't know, belly button lint or something. Your enclosed emitter is going to do you, in my opinion, a little bit better. You have a X300 here with the paddle shifter from Emissary Development, just something that I like to run. We don't have to belabor that point, but what this comes down to is it's not a Recce rifle, it's a Recce weapon, and which could be a 22, it could be a knife for all, you know, we know. But having something like this is very, very convenient, very concealable, and in something like a sidecar rig here, you have 15+1 in the gun and then a 17-round backup magazine. It's 33 rounds of ammunition, plus whatever else we have on our person. And that doesn't cover if we're able to get back to a vehicle, some sort of mode of transportation where we can escalate, we can get to a larger weapons platform. But let's talk about what we carry on our person here. We'll talk a little bit about this T-Rex Arms ready rig and all the things that I have set up in mine. So you can see here, this is all concealed behind the jacket, right? Starting on the side here, we have a North American Rescue CAT tourniquet. Yes, there are smaller tourniquets on the market, but this is pretty much your gold standard. Very concealable. This, you honestly could fit this in a back pocket and it really wouldn't stick out too much. But you have at least your baseline medical covered with a tourniquet. And then in addition, you can have your GP pouch here where you would keep additional medical if that's something you anticipated needing. You should have it. So gauze pads, rolled gauze, things like that that are going to help you from a medical standpoint. Additionally, like we talked about, being able to escalate, having a single rifle mag. So you don't need to load down this whole thing with a ton of ammo. Again, the goal of any reconnaissance mission or intelligence gathering mission or effort is not to get into a gunfight. It's to avoid detection. It's to avoid confrontation. But if you have a vehicle, and I'm assuming you probably would because most of us do, you may have something like this stowed in your vehicle. So a 10.5, or no, this is an 11.5 inch folding carbine, right? Stowed in your vehicle. So if you can get to that vehicle, this can be your point of escalation. Have a nice folding stock on it, which, I mean, this is not a requirement, but it does make it smaller, less conspicuous. You're trying to stow it in a small car or small SUV. Yep, you have a little elastic band here. You can just deploy the sling, and now you're ready to go to work. And if you only had the one mag in the gun, then having a second magazine for either magazine failure or if you needed to reload because things did go sideways, you have that on you. If you go past that, maybe it's good to talk about having some sort of, I don't know, bag full of spare magazines, additional ammunition where you can reload should the need arise. But have a single 30 round mag on here, very concealable, not that big a deal. Like I said, in the center pouch, medical, but you can also keep something like this right in the rain pad here. And I have the space pen, which is really small, really easy to use, and they do really, really great in terms of being able to write on wet surfaces and things like that. So kind of a cool combination. I know Write in the Rain also makes their Polka pen that gets really, really tiny as well. If you want to go that route, maybe it's a little bit cheaper for you, but I really like the space pen. And gathering information, this is pretty innocuous, right? It could be a grocery list. You could be writing a list for groceries later. It could be a school assignment, just depending on what's going on. You also could be using a cell phone, right? People are always on their phones, and that's a benefit to us in an urban environment because we're assuming, right, we haven't lost our internet signal. Everyone's on their phone all the time. You could be taking video, you could be taking audio recording. You can actually dictate notes on your phone and have that available, and it's not going to look like you're doing something out of the ordinary. You just kind of have to mask your intentions a little bit and be a little bit smarter rather than just walking around with your phone out in front of you trying to videotape something maybe you shouldn't. But all of that can be used to gather information. Additionally, we can have a extra mag here, and that goes into, that's 17 rounds in addition to, right, what we had with our sidecar. So you had 33 rounds plus 17, that's 50 rounds of 9mm ammunition now that you have available for just your sidearm in the event maybe you weren't able to get back to your vehicle, or maybe you don't have a carbine in your vehicle, something like that, right? You still have 50 rounds of 9mm, and it's all concealed here underneath the jacket within this chest rig. Additionally, off the rig, you can still carry basic items that are going to help assist you. Things like a flashlight, right? So this is the, I always forget the model name here. It's the MCH 2.0. It's the high candela dual fuel version from Cloud Defensive. I like the dual fuel because if the 18650 inside here dies, I can just throw a couple CR123s in there, have those around for things like the LP1 rifle optic and the weapon light here, and the laser, the laser aiming module that I would have on said carbine. Just me, personally. But great option. Handheld light obviously doesn't look nearly as bad as doing the very cringy internet practice of utilizing your weapon light as a search and rescue tool. But this, people carry flashlights all the time. This isn't necessarily the most surprising thing you could pull out of your pocket. And if you needed a knife, right, like we talked about, folding knife, Spyderco Tenacious here. Again, not a super big knife, not going to draw a lot of eyes to it, just looks like a folding knife that you might keep in your pocket. Now, additionally, let's talk about comms. So when we're talking about communications here, you can run something like this. This is just a Baofeng. It could be any radio. You can see the antenna is just rubber banded to the shoulder strap of the chest rig and then run underneath the collar of the jacket. The whole thing conceals here. It's not printing. You don't have any issues. You still have a really, really good range. And then you can take something like this included earpiece, which comes with the Baofeng. Like, everybody likes to trash the $20 radio until they start realizing that it's not completely worthless. So this earpiece would run up, obviously it would sit in your ear, kind of like so, right? And now you can have fairly innocuous communications. I've seen people walking in the malls with earpieces like this, and it's not, I mean, does it look super cool? No. But I mean, if you're worried about cool, you'd probably just pony up the cash for some AirPods. But this works if you want to keep communications off of your cell phone, things like that. You can run the earpiece here, and it has a push to talk, which you can clip to the shoulder strap as well. So without looking like you're talking into your, you know, whatever secret agents do with their wrist mics and Secret Service agents and things like that, you have communications. So you have options here. I know this is a very dressed down idea of building out a chest rig and a Recce loadout and all that fun stuff that we love to talk about, getting out in the woods and sustainment and all that. But here's the point we're making, is that the mission dictates the gear. So if you're in an urban environment, multicam's not really gonna fly, right? A giant chest rig with a 18-inch rifle and a boonie hat and a sustainment pack, that's not really gonna help you out in the urban environment where everything's gray tones, it's very cement, it's very cold, right? So this is the kind of stuff that's gonna help you be more successful and be more prepared. Not saying that it's any better or worse than that other stuff, but know your environment, know your mission set, and understand what you're trying to achieve, again, for intelligence gathering purposes, so that you have more information to make better decisions with. Additionally, like we talked about in the beginning of the video, you still have pockets you can fill with things like a little spotting scope here. This might look a little bit weirder, yes, but if you needed it, you still have it. It's got a little lanyard here. You can actually run this underneath your shirt around your neck if you so chose. You have options, guys. That's what I'm getting at, is you have options here. So hopefully, if you're somebody like me who lives in a very urban area, you're understanding now that things could get weird in the next couple months, the next couple years, or you're just trying to plan ahead, be well prepared, right? This is the kind of thing where you need to understand your mission set, your environment, and your goals. Understand that mission dictates the gear. So thank you guys for checking this one out. This is part 1. We're gonna follow this up with a part 2 video where we get into, maybe you do live in a more rural area. Maybe you don't need this stuff. Maybe you do need all that jungle green and multicam. We're gonna get into all that and a whole bunch more in the next video, so stay tuned for that. Make sure you guys hit the notification bell, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one.